Hi, I'm DM Zone. This is Gamers Oasis. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, we're into our second video for the Season of Crafting Season 1. We're going to be doing the EP1 run I talked about in the last video. It was through a donation/loan for me to be able to do it 30 times. Greatly appreciate that individual who lent me this BP to do it. This is on a 100 QR BP. I'll talk more about that in other videos, but for right now, let's go ahead and jump into what we're doing here. In this particular video, we're going to talk about the advanced stone extractor for the item spotlight. The last video, I talked about the basic stone extractor. If you want to learn more about that, I suggest checking out the first video of the series. So as I said before, this is an EP1 run. It's going to be on Toulon with the Nadiri Once an Apprentice mission. This gives you machinery skill, the actual skill, so it's very nice. It's 1,000 clicks. So this would be a 1,000 click run. I'm also going to be hunting some mocots. The mocots will be mature, olds, and providers, if I remember right, and it'll be a 150 ped hunt. I'll be also throwing in this video the results of my second runs for Kuhof 1 and Kuhof 2. With that said, let's get into the advanced stone extractor. Alright, so as you can see here, there are 3 different blueprints that go along with this particular one. There's the Rutal, there's the Soper, and then there's the Truton. So each one of these have very different costs for markup. The TT value goes up incrementally, as you can see here, by 1 extractor per thing. It starts off with 4 with Rutal, 5 with Soper, and 6 with Truton. But the stone markup is significantly higher between these two, and it doesn't necessarily make sense. It's not intuitive. So there are still a lot of things that I'm not 100% for sure on. I've not run these blueprints. I'm not sure I'm ever going to run these blueprints. I'm not sure finding out the secret for the amount of ped it would cost is something that I'm able to do at this point in time. However, let me just go ahead and get into this just a little bit more so you can understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start at the basics. All these blueprints are universal unlimited blueprints. That means that they can be found basically anywhere. The items can be found anywhere, and that they're unlimited, which means that they do not start off with a 95% success rate. You start off with a low QR. You have to build them up. That means that they cost a lot when you're leveling them up. The advanced stone extractor is oddly specific, as in it only works with found stone items. There's no other blueprints like with the basic stone extractor or other type of things. So these are only with the free found objects you found. You can't hunt this. You can't hunt a mob to get this to be able to use this. You can't mine this to be able to use this. So this means that you have to run around literally to find it, which makes it probably the most scarce items ever. Also, these 3 are more scarce than the stone objects that you find anyways. So you're looking at the most niche type of thing, or the most scarce type of thing. This has driven the price of this extractor down because of certain other factors, though. The extractor price is at a reasonable level. I don't know if that's driven by those that are wanting to level up material constructor, or if that's leveled up by those who want to level up material designer or color texture or something of that nature, or if people specifically want these textures for their whatever. I don't think that would be true. I don't think that textures themselves are overly important to most entropians. I believe that there are a certain group of social entropians that care more about that, and then some people just want a splash of color. And whether it is a Truton or a Rutal, I don't think they really care, to be honest. So I don't know how that works exactly, but that's my guess. And I say I only don't know how that works because until I go and spend the amount of PED to do thousands and thousands of clicks. I don't know what other results, what other asterisk things might be in there. So let me go into really quickly. This is not a complaint. This is more of an explanation of a thing. So if you're doing a component craft in something within the electronic, the mechanical, or the metal engineering, for example, you're going to have a chance to have a lot of those blueprints, a recycling explosive projectile blueprint drop. Now, that's not 100%, that's not across the board, but for a lot of those blueprints, there are those in there. So the blueprints that cannot drop that instantly become less valuable to run than the ones that can drop that. Because that blueprint is a very, very expensive blueprint. If you find a 1 PED version of that, you're looking at several hundred PED or 1,000 PED worth of the thing, because it is just that valuable. That might be a slight exaggeration. Those are just guesstimation of numbers. But let's just put it that it's like that kind of an improvement in markup over the base item. There really isn't anything like that in the material constructor. Not because textures are less important, but because you don't have the exact PED return. You don't have an augmented or a boosted blueprint within this, with at least in the lower levels, that makes it so much more worth it to do that. The closest you get to that would be with the long tooth musk and the Emon musk. Those are technically not even textures. Those are used for something else. And they do have more value. A lot of that is based upon the base value of the item and the rarity of it, and the fact that these are event items that tend to have a wave-like effect, shall we say, on their value. There are others. The Perpite texture seems to use a tailoring proficiency versus the colorer proficiency. Most people have a higher tailoring just by osmosis, by doing things, by hunting, than they do color. Now you think that's kind of silly, but no, literally, you could craft nothing ever and you'll have a higher tailoring than you will have a colorer profession. You have to specifically try and level colorer to level colorer. There's very few micro skills in there that will actually raise that, which is why that is one of the harder professions to actually level. Okay, so there's that. And then there's a couple things over there in Toulon that I know of that look to be in the material constructor line with textures, but they themselves are not textures. They look to be mechanical and that type of, metal engineering type blueprints. Now, here's the thing. I could tell you which ones those are, and I could tell you how they look based upon the wiki and that type of stuff. But it wouldn't make any difference. You've never heard of them. You don't know what they go to and all that, because there is no direct PED to constructing the blueprint ratio. It makes it a component for a different blueprint, which you may or may not have ever heard of. It's not going to be the top of the line, so no one ever, you have to be very Toulon specific to be able to even know what that is. Now, when I get to that in my Toulon videos, I'll probably talk more about that and maybe actually get these blueprints so I can show you them. And then we can actually look into it more than what the wiki says. And I don't base it necessarily off of just what the wiki says. I base it off of some in-game factors like what book they're found in versus and looking at their name plus the book they're found in versus just, this wiki says this. So anyways, so I got a little bit off track there. Let's get back into it. We talked about the fact that the algorithm really doesn't care about markup when it comes to, your success rate, or when it comes to what you get back in rewards and that type of stuff. If you spend 5 PED, then the algorithm does all the math and it pops out whatever it pops out, and this is the range of things unless you global, and then there's that range. And we've talked about the fact that these are not boosted blueprints, so they're not going to have any extra benefits or juice that way, as I said in the last video. So the question is, does the algorithm ever really take into things like scarcity? Now, the first three blueprints I talked about with the basic blue extractor, with the Burkite, Nisit, and Caldone, there's really not a scarcity issue. They're all about the same rarity. They're all found about the same rate. Probably find more Burkite than anything, and it has the higher value, whatever. That's a whole different thing. And this one here, Soper is probably the easiest to find. It's in the middle, which is weird. Rutol is the most valuable, but it's the lowest on the TT cost. And Truton, which is the most expensive of all these to craft as far as TT cost, is more in the middle as far as actual markup cost, what you're going to expect to pay. So let me get into what I mean by that. Well, you're going to spend anywhere from really 2 to about 5 ped per 1,000 Soper stones. You're going to spend really between 15 and like 17 ped per 1,000 Truton, if you can find it. Good luck. And for the Rutol, you're going to spend anywhere from 63 to about 75 ped per 1,000 to go ahead and do this. Now you can see why I'm saying I probably will never actually raise it up. I might do the Truton just because the Truton is the only found stone object or object blueprint out there that is level 2. It is a level 2 blueprint. Now that unlocks new blueprints you can find, which is unique amongst the found object category. It also is going to be the highest TT, which means that if I'm going to be checking the TT of found objects and that type of stuff, it probably has the most amount coming back to it. So there is some reason why I would want to do that. Now, why would I not? Okay, it sounds like there's a lot of good reasons why. Why would one not do this? And I don't want to get too far off into the weeds with this. In the last video, I said it took about 18,000 clicks to get blueprint from 1 to 100. And that was actually a misstatement. It's actually 18 runs, 18 crafting runs of 1.5 or 1,500 clicks. So you're looking at really 27,000 clicks. So take that 15 to 17 ped and times that by 27, and that's going to be the initial cost of just the stone, not even going into the actual extractors. The extractors are going to do, what's that, 60 ped per 1,000. So times that by 27, now you're looking at the actual cost of how much that would cost. It is an exorbitant amount of ped that would be spent to do this. I don't know if I'm ever going to do that. We'll see. So let's go ahead and compare these real quickly amongst themselves. So Rutol requires 4. That means that the markup for Rutol with the advanced stone extractor at being at about 1.15%, so 115%. You're looking at be about 6 ped markup per 1,000 clicks. It'd be 7.5 for Soper, and it'd be 9, for the Truton. So you can kind of get an idea of where that, and of course we talked about already the base cost of the stone, so you can see that really Soper comes in right there at the lowest cost per click, followed by Truton, followed by Rutol, which is not in the order in which the blueprints are actually there in their TT costs and all that type of stuff. On a side note, real quickly though, Rutol seems to be more common than Truton in my experience. Very few people have ever actually found Rutol and Truton that go looking for it. And most of the people that go looking for it, that actually are hunting specifically for these type of things, are going to be free-to-play players. So a very small percentage of the populace that play the game have actually gone and found both of these. And even a smaller, finite percent of the people that go looking for that have ever actually found 1,000 themselves. So if you could go look right now, yeah, you could probably find 1,000 Rutol or 1,000 Truton, but that's probably people who have bought it, who have then collected a little bit and have decided they're not going to do anything with it, and they're selling it again. So a lot of this is like people that have sold, that bought it, that sold, that bought it type of thing. I don't think people are out there collecting 1,000 plus of this all the time. As a person that's gone looking for this a lot, I don't know that you could expect to find that. Okay, I don't know if you can hear my AC unit come on. This would be an interesting little test moving forward, I guess. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about chips. Okay, so for complexity, it's very simple. It is hard to get more simple than this. Have two products, one being the advanced stone extractor and the blueprint, create the item. It's really hard to get less complex than that. The only way you get less complex than that is to have the object mined, store-bought, hunted, that type of stuff. Doesn't require anything other than that. That would be the only way. So we're going to go with a 4.5 for complexity. Handy. Well, it's a texture. You get money back. It's got some value to it, I guess. I would say that if you had this texture, people probably would buy it, but it's probably hard to get enough of it to actually do it. So it's a thing that you could have a small amount of, being more than 323, and then be able to actually sell it. That has value. So I'm going to go ahead and put the handiness of this probably at about a 4. Item markup, the actual stone extractor, the advanced stones extractor, is one of the lowest markup items there is. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4.5 because of that. The inverse of this, which is where you're going to come with the product markup, is you have to pay a lot to get the stones. There's not a whole lot of sell. You're certainly not going to get what you put back into it back. If you have 1,000 textures of Rutol, which is actually unrealistic. So let's go with this. If you were to do 1,000 clicks of Rutol and you had QR 100, you could expect to get back between 42, probably 40 and 45% of that in actual texture. So you're looking at 420 to 450 textures. If you could sell that then for 75 PED, then you're doing pretty doggone good. I seriously doubt that a person's going to spend 75 PED to put that texture on something. It's not special. It's well, and particularly like the Rutol, it's just a dark stone. So you have a dark stone metal look on top of a dark stone metal schlep there. There's no awesome benefit of that. At least the Soper is like a smooth ivory white stone. And if I remember right, the Truton actually comes out looking like granite. So I mean, if you want to have a granite looking Sleipnir, which that could be pretty cool, that would be a thing. But again, this is just how I don't think people don't pay that much for textures right now. Maybe when Unreal Engine 5 comes out, people will be paying that much for those kind of textures because it will be visually that much better. I think people pay more for function now than they do for appearance. So product markup is going to be a 1. We're going to go pretty low on that. I just really don't feel like it. It might be a 1.5, but I'm going to go with a 1 for right now. I don't really feel like 75, 100% markup is going to be justified in the actual sell price of an object. Scarcity actually goes back up to a 4. Yes, some of the items are pretty scarce to get for the stone side, but the actual extractor side is pretty good. It requires a lot of extractors to be able to do a click. So you get a fair amount. You have to have 4,000 to be able to do a Rutal 5000 to be able to do 1,000 clicks of SOPR. There is some benefit for sure in there. I think that's pretty clear. 3.5 to a 4 would be my guess. As far as the zone, like where would it fall into all that? It certainly does not have that X factor. Certainly does not have the oh my. It's kind of in that ambiguous area, and it's definitely not in the never mind. For a lot of people, it might be, but if you didn't have SOPR, it would be a never mind. But the SOPR kind of brings us up to the ambiguous level. There are things about it we like. There are things about it we don't like. And I think that's kind of something you just have to kind of go with that. So before we get too far away from this, let's go ahead and talk about the fact of the texture levels of these, what you get from this. The texture levels are starting to get into a harder level for the material designer. There is some benefit to be able to run this a lot. You're starting to get in it, but there's a lot of things that can get you in that range outside of this blueprint. You're starting to enter the realm of, there's not a blueprint that does that. There is a lot of blueprints that do that. And some of them have really low markup costs and a high TT value, which means you should get back more skill per ped entered. For example, 75 ped worth of Rutal is basically wasted if you spend 75 ped on that, because it's actually a 0.01 TT item. If you were to spend 75 ped on wool, for example, that would have a much lower amount of markup and a much higher amount of TT. Okay, I think that's basically understood. You should get more skill back from doing a wool texture than you would a stone texture. Okay, so my summary report for this crafting session came back at 40.7%. I ended up getting back, according to it, about 20.61 ped. I actually have the actual card that will show you what I actually got back. Sometimes these cards aren't exactly right. Turning in the mission, you can see that I got 159 points some change in machinery skill. This has raised all of my skills dramatically again. I'm up to 32% for the bulk of my skills. My carpentry, which is on the low end, is at 27.15. In the top end, my my vehicle engineer is at 43.44% of a level. Now, why do I say this as if there's no other factors? That's because literally there are no other factors. All the proficiencies that machinery affects, I am on purpose not doing. This means I'm focusing on components and material constructor while I do this, so I can see how far this machinery actually goes uninfluenced by me doing other crafting. This blueprint run, you can see I got a lot more blueprints. I ended up getting 3.79 ped worth of welding wire. This is something that doesn't happen every time, but there are some absolutely insane amounts of welding wire I got from doing these craftings on Toulon. If you need this, I kind of recommend that, but I don't know if that is the same everywhere else, because frankly, I've only run the EP1 blueprint on Toulon. I've never run it anywhere else so far. Unfortunately, I did happen to get 5 basic filter blueprints. That is just 5 pec worth of TT is all that is. I also got a basic structure and a basic sensor. These are a little bit more of uncommon blueprints, and they have a little bit more value to most people. If you were a mentor, your disciple probably would like something like that, so they didn't have to buy it off of the auction. Or if you had friends that were trying to get into crafting, these type of things. Epi to Craft, my tab as you can see here, he went from 2.25 to 2.61, which is a 0.36 of a level. It cost me 27 bars of pet food, so there's a little bit of a value in there, as you can see. Total skills gained was 4.36 for doing the crafting, which is a pretty good amount of skills for this. I mean, it's not awesome. You know, I need to do this a little over 20 times to actually get a level of machinery craft, but you know, machine engineer, but I'll get there. So on the 150 ped hunt specifically, let's go ahead and talk about the rewards I got back from that. I have Evader. My Evader card, as you can see here, it shows I got 1.47% of a level. Which is not very much. I did not get any sort of, apparently during this period of time, I didn't get any of the MOCOT 2, 3, or 4 turn-ins. That is why my evading skill didn't go up but by 3 points. Ammo looter, again, went up by 4.02% of a level. So if I did this 20 times, I would be up 80% of a level. Really looking at needing this about, 25 times, 25 fights like this to actually get a level at this level of ammo looter. Paramedic, again, I didn't actually use my healing FAP, so the only thing I got was through other things like the killing and dexterity and that type of stuff. Ranged laser damage went up by 5.11% of a level. Again, this is another one of those things. I'm happy to get every little bit I can. This was less than last time, but that's okay. This is a little bit RNG, and I do expect on average to get less every time I go out and do the same hunt. Laser sniper, I ended up getting 5.17%. This is a higher skill. It's a little bit surprising I got more than I did my damage, but that's kind of how things been going anyways until later on I get different unlocks. Okay, so as you can see here, I hunted the matures, the olds, and the providers. As you can see here, got some weapon damage or repairs on my weapon. I have some repairs on my scout armor as it took a beating. I didn't use my Vivos 10. Again, my weapon attachments are 2 of the bullseye 8s and 1 long range 4, which I consider to be some of the best unlimited scopes and lasers you can get. Spent 150 ped. I got back more than I did the last time when hunting MOCOTs, which was nice. Got back a whole bunch of ammo oil residue, some muscle oil residue. I got back 2.1 ped again, and ammo hides. Like I said before, if you keep getting back over 2 ped or right at 2 ped worth of ammo hides for every 150 ped you're doing, you're going to quickly and significantly increase the amount of ammo hides you have. I got some tier 1 components to socket 1 components. I didn't get back any of the paints. I got more MOCOT hides. This time was a pretty significant amount. I want to talk real briefly about MOCOT hides at the end of this card. Got some MOCOT hands and organs. So the hands and organs end up being carpentry items, which I've known about. I looked into a little bit with the MOCOT hides to find out what type of extractor that is, so I know where my extractor list that would actually fall, because I feel like it'd be relevant to talk about. And I won't get into that specifically, but what I did find is I do believe that this is a sort of a rarity amongst textures, that a leather or a hide can be then used outside of texture as well as in texture. You can find, for example, yog skins, which are used for making boxing gloves, but there is no yog skin or yog texture. It's kind of rare to find MOCOT hides or leathers that turns into a MOCOT texture, and then find that same thing without having to make it into a texture that is then used on carpentry. But the MOCOT hides are used in carpentry, and I found it to be a little bit odd, and I wanted to just talk about it in this particular video. Kind of a random place for it. Overall, though, you can see I was down 27-ish ped, 26 ped. That is not awesome, but it is what it is. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the Kuhoff 1 results. So Kuhoff 1 results, you can see I got back some shrapnel, some MRSAL tokens, some animal muscle oil, some animal eye oil, some animal residue. I got some tab hides. I got some surface hardener components, which is very good for enhancer type stuff. More SoC1 components. I ended up getting a Nawa Core MK2 Part A. There is there are different levels of this, and there are different alpha numerics. A is found in the 1, Bravos are found in the B, so on. Speaking of the 2, Kuhof 2, that one there I got back significantly more shrapnel. I got back significantly more MRSAL tokens. You spend more to get in. You spend more in bed when you're hunting. So this is to be expected. I got back animal eye oil. I got back animal oil residue. I didn't get back any muscle oil. I don't believe that drops off of these particular mobs. I did get back some Mokot hides, as this is a Mokot exclusive dungeon. I got back a ceiling lamp, which is one of the rare objects. I'm going to go with uncommon to rare objects that you can find here that sometimes have very special value. And a special component or part of a larger overarching mission are these carpet fragments. So there are 3 different colors of carpet fragments. This time I got red. Red is in the low end, I believe, low middle. And that is very nice. I'm going to need a whole heap of these though to be able to get this done. Okay guys, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video with you guys watching the actual end of this hunt for the Kuhof, so you can see the actual rewards come across the screen. If you guys want to see more videos like this, or if you want to see what I do in the future, please like and subscribe down below. I appreciate you guys watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys feel would be better. I will try and incorporate that as I go. See you guys next video. Keep her in that bed. Bye.